Hey Collective, it's Alan coming to you with a video that I believe will be a standalone piece just for the YouTube audience, which specifically centers around a dream I had that I thought meant one thing as it was happening, but as I awoke to it and kind of thought more in depthly about it, realized that there was a lot more to it that actually related to a great deal more people than just myself. So before I begin, I just want to say that, when it comes to spiritual downloads or dream interpretation, one of the things that happens is that we internalize the data in a way that its presentation is key to our greater understanding. So as we begin, just know that though the symbolism involved me, I could tell that it was significant to more than just myself. Though I was experiencing it from my own personal lens, that it was representative of other groupings of couplings that were coming into union, whether it be friendship or whether it be in the twin flame journey. So this has a lot more to do with divine unions in general than it does just with the idea of a twin flame. So what had happened was I woke up in a dream where I was laying in bed in my current surroundings as I would normally do in an everyday situation, only I was facing another human being that was shrouded in shadow, what I perceived at first to be a representation of their shadow nature that kept glitching between me being as an adult and then my inner child, represented by the fact that I was flashing back to when I was a kid, then looking at another human being who was also glitching in the same vibration, where you could tell that there was an adult there that was meant to be my partner because of what I'm going to explain throughout the dream, but that I could tell was representing in the same flashes as their inner child. And the relevance to it kind of grew as the dream progressed. So as the dream began, we're facing each other and we're doing this thing where we are holding hands like this, right? And we're kind of in the middle of trying to go to sleep, but you can tell it's very late in the night, and the inner child in us could not stop bantering with the other. And it reminded me of like memories I've had in the past where my poor mom would yell whenever I had a sleepover with a friend, where she would be like, "Would you two go to sleep? It's like after midnight." And so there was a semblance of that to the dream. But what was confusing about it was that I was looking more at the inner child of the other person and not so much the adult version. It was still clouded in mystery. And so because of that, I misinterpreted at first glance the dream to imply our having been so innocent as children, and as time went on, developed a shadow nature that we had to work through in order to then cleanse that in order to find each other again. But one of the interesting things that happened within the dream, that is why I realized it was much more than just a personal message of me coming into union with someone else, was that around the aura of the shadow was flashes of different light, right? And it kept almost looking like you would see in a tree of life or a Christmas tree that's decorated where the lights flash different colors. And as I began to focus more on trying to define the inner child of the other person while noticing the flashes of light coming at me, I realized that they were different incarnations of different people, men, women, all coming into divine union with each other, being represented in the flashes of light that we, in our interaction, were exhibiting. And so as I began to focus on that, I realized something very interesting about my counterpart, which I thought I'd share with you guys because of the symbolism that it represented when I woke up. So as I'm looking in the dream at this particular person, I could tell that we had sparked the inner child in the other person, and that when we finally come together, it will be that relationship that most expands our consciousness, and it's something very illuminating and quite rewarding. But that as I was looking at that, I started to pick up on specifications of the other person that I thought was interesting. For example, the inner child was holding a teddy bear in the shape of a rabbit. And we were listening to music playing in the background, which the other person seemed to be very musically driven in the way that they would kind of jolt the hand, because remember we're holding hands like this. They would move their hand in vibration almost like that. And so I remember thinking how sweet that was. But that when I woke up meant something great, of greater importance to me, and it might mean something to you, as far as soul registration and recognition of one another. And what happened was that as the dream progressed, it was literally two grown-ass men talking to each other incessantly like you would as a child. And because I was tapping into a wider collective of divine union representation, I could see the shadow morph into men and women that I've never met that were finding each other in divine union and how expansive it was to each other, and that banter that happens between young people. It's like when you find your best friend and you realize that this is your ride or die person, how expansive that can be to your actual internal compass and how rewarding it is as a life experience. And so what I was seeing a flashing between the inner child and the kind of the morphing of the shadow was the evolution of the person who has yet to reveal themselves, because one of the people in most of the dynamics is not yet aware that the other person is interested, from what I gathered from the dream. So when I woke up from the dream, one of the things that I was looking at very closely was the relationship between the bunny rabbit in the person's hand, and what I could see was freckles, what I believe to be freckles or some sort of rosy colored cheeks to the inner child that looked so innocent and pure that it made me feel elated in the interaction with the other person. Meaning that for those of you who are on the twin flame or divine union journey where you are encountering your soulmates, you are like two peas in a far out pod. There's something specific about your energies that reignites imagination, creativity, harmony, musicality, all of the great things that make the world worth experiencing and makes life worthwhile. And so it was an incredibly illuminating moment where I could see the interdynamics that will play out between the right aligned people. Meaning that though there are people who are karmics who can look like they are there to be a rewarding aspect to your life, but turn out to be a lesson that you have to learn, these dynamics that are coming into play, these individuals that are coming into union with each other, whether in friendship, business partnerships, or in lifelong ride or die twin flames, you are coming into union not only equally yoked, but you're coming into union so as to open the other back up to who they truly are internally. And the energetic signature is so significantly different from what you might have experienced in the world around you that there is a great deal of tension and almost a little bit of fear and anxiety surrounding when you two identify each other as a possibility, because you are registering such a different vibration and such a different frequency that it's almost confusing to you, because you don't necessarily understand what the dynamic is. All you know is that there's a natural magnetic pull towards each other, and there's something that you know is on the other side of this individual in your interaction with them. And it reminded me of just like best friends in general. And one of the things that was illuminated in my processing of that information was my own personal quest to find that person, right? Most of us who are in divine unions have been under the impression that we are waiting for someone specific. And many of you share something very interesting with each other, whether you know it or not, is that many of you have pulled yourself out of the dating pool or have literally been celibate for a period of time while you wait for someone else that you've only felt was coming your way. You had no proof, it was just blind faith, but there was something internal about you that knew that you were awaiting a certain person. And what it was interesting about the dream, as I woke up and was kind of getting ready after the dream, I couldn't stop thinking of the dynamic between, let's say, Archangel Michael or Archangel Gabriel, finding each other in physical form and what that would look like when the souls register each other before the human expression is able to catch up with what's happening. It was kind of that dynamic. Or the moment where Lumiere and the clock and Beauty and the Beast find each other, and though antagonistic to some degree, literally are ride or die best friends, right? It's that knowledge, that internal compass that goes, ding, this person is the key that I've been waiting for. And one of the things that played out with that whole idea, I should say, was it started to reveal something very interesting about divine unions in general, which is their purpose is to expand our horizons in ways that reignite that inner child, that innocence and that purity that purifies the soul to such a degree that the people feel like they can say anything and do anything in front of the other person. Something so liberating in the experience that it jars the two souls into perfect alignment with each other, almost as though they enter into union before the physical vessels can catch up to what's happening. Meaning that some of you may be experiencing what we call soul acceptance, and where you suddenly feel yourself more at peace in your own skin and perfectly capable of living a life if you need to in isolation. Again, going back to that aspect where many of you share the trait of maybe a little bit of celibacy, or more to the point, a little bit more of the kind of refraining from a lot of interaction with other people so as to fully pick up the pieces of yourself, heal what you need to heal in order to be prepared for the alignment when this other person comes to you. And in that moment, what I was realizing was that a great many of you are in search of a friend, a best friend dynamic within the twin flame journey. Your souls are registering a simpatico that is unusual to the human condition, and that, like your penguins or those type of, or like a swans that are coming in to dance with one another, you register subconsciously something that the brain is still processing. And in my case, what it did is it parlayed that message specifically in a way where I could understand it, but that meant a great deal more to each of you as it relates to your own journey and your own storyline. Because one of the things that was happening in the dream as our inner child and our adult was interacting with the other person was there's a great deal of overflow of joy and elation, two very key words that I'm specifically supposed to designate and to point out to you all. It's joy and elation. Something about your interactions with one another reignites a flame within you that is rare to behold for most human beings. Part of conditioning and part of the growth process for most people is to lose the inner child aspect of yourself in order to actualize yourself in a way that's very detailed and very driven by life and about practicality. And so you lose a bit of your joy and you lose a little bit of your imaginative skills so as to better survive the environment that you are in. But something about these specific groupings of people, these duos, I should say, not duels, these duos, is dynamic. It's explosive, and it's something that has been under attack by many different energies to prevent these unions from coming into alignment with each other. Because once they do, there's something unstoppable about the pure joy that comes from them being together. It's just imagine yourself as a child and that best friend that you had as a child that was never out of your sight, was always at your side, and having that as an adult. And you'll understand the dynamic that was showing in the dream and why it was coming to me in the way that it was. Remember, in the dream, the two of us are literally holding hands, staring in, like, right into each other's eyes, talking about the most random things. I think at the beginning of the dream, we were engaged in a conversation about astrology before moving into theosophy and then moving on to other things. And I could tell that it was a consistent flow. In the dream, this was not a first-time occurrence. It wasn't the first encounter. These two individuals, myself and the other person, in the future will have a lifetime of this type of banter. It's something organic that happens between divine unions. It reminds me of perfect examples you see within the world of best friends that are so, and what do they call, bromances and stuff like that, where they're so in alignment that they allow the other person the freedom to be themselves and to express thoughts and ideas within the dynamic between each other, where they know the other person won't judge them or look down upon them, but rather embrace them. And it's a specific signature to divine unions, whether it's a twin flame or whether it's your soulmates that are friends. It's the freedom to be yourself outwardly. It's a way that your soul can honestly settle into its energy and actualize itself in a manner that begets something great from another person. It's a dialogue and a dance that is meant to happen between you and your lifetime partner. It's what people call your kingdom spouse. It's someone who doesn't restrict you, but instead helps you expand your consciousness in ways that you thought maybe you couldn't because of dogma or just the way you were raised. But there's a freedom that comes from you all coming together that is super important for the wider collective. One of the things that we're losing as a collective consciousness is the ability to think and breathe for ourselves. There's a suppressive aspect to our collective right now, which is very dogmatic and kind of everyone telling everybody else what to do, and it's driving a big wedge between us. These couplings organically have no walls between them. what you see is what you get, and when they are together, it transmutes the energy around you. It's like the mixture of the color gold and the color blue, basically representing two different aspects of creation, which I internalized as probably my other half being a younger fire sign because of the fact that he was holding the rabbit, which in truth turned out to be that he's a bit of a magician. Someone who has a skill set probably of a fire sign quality that has the ability to pull a rabbit out of his hat type of thing. And it was a specific sign to me that I would register, but more in an awakened state, because my process of elimination is always similar to that, which is, what is the symbolic nature of the dream? What can I grasp from it? And then will it be the same as I wake up? And once I'm awake, if I let it linger long enough, will it transmute or change its meaning in a way that I can better parlay it to a greater audience? And that's exactly what happened. So the person that I probably am being attracted to, or that I'm coming into union with, because it's very clear that we have locked eyes on each other, meaning that many of you, this is not somebody you don't know. This is someone who's already probably in your circle or somehow familiar with your work. Meaning, some of these divine unions from the flashes of light and the intensity that was coming towards me as I was looking at this were exceedingly strong, and they were light beams and beacons that you cannot avert your eyes from. So I couldn't help but wonder if some of you have a public-facing aspect to your partnerships, meaning that when you guys come into union, there might be something forwardly facing outwards towards the community or towards the world at large that you will be doing in tandem with each other that will somehow benefit and transmute energy for other people in a way that is non-offensive and non-intrusive, but rather as examples of what right alignment can look like and the magic that comes from true love and destiny when they are combined. And something sacred about that trinity, about that moment where it's almost like the higher ups have purposely brought you to whoever you are, male, female, 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 male, male, whatever the dynamic is, that you have reached a level of mastery or an ascension aspect where you two are almost fated to meet because what you represent somehow heals or helps the universe at large. And that's an incredibly lofty perspective. But notice that there's no actual wrong way to accomplish it once these two have come together. This is literally about two best friends opening each other up from their heart to their mind to their soul, and the elation and joy that comes from two inner children having someone now to play with. One of the things about actualizing yourself into full manifestation, where a soul fully manifests itself and grounds itself into the energy of the earthly plane, is that it's a lonely journey. Meaning that a lot of you have been isolated for a reason, but it's been probably a long time. Somewhere between 10 and 7 years or something in between that, where you have had to overcome your own shadow nature and your need for codependence, right? Because just if you think about it just from a philosophical or analytical standpoint, it's very easy for two people who are best friends to almost merge into one being. But these divine unions are being cautioned to specifically remember who they are and to be at a place when they meet that they are still within their own voice, and that's part of the blessing to the miracle, right? Because for a long time, you've been on a quest for answers, and you've been on a quest for your ride or die person. You've been on a quest to understand the world at large, but knowing that you are so unique that there's only probably one other human being on planet Earth that would be able to understand what you're saying at the vibration that you mean it, and where you wouldn't have to keep double downing on stuff or having to go back over the same information. These unions are very unique. They have a semblance of the twin flame journey and almost a telepathic communication quality to it. Meaning that when you come into contact with each other, the synergy between you is expansive, it's explosive. It does something to the environment that you're always in. It's like you are joined at the hip and always wanting to either be holding hands or be in close proximity. But notice that that would be exceedingly toxic if you were at a lower vibration. It would lead to codependence and the loss of self in order to fulfill the relationship. Whereas these energies are perfectly manifested beings that are now coming into harmony, where they are in search of a mirror, and not in the physical form necessarily, but in the perspective of life, right? It's like a philosopher and a spiritualist coming into alignment with each other. They cross paths, both are incredibly interested in the school, the academic nature to humanity and the evolution of our species, and kind of learning why there are certain trigger patterns, what is the collective working on. There's a quality of learning that myself and the other person seem to possess. There is a higher sense of mystery and wonder and a sense of magic. Remember, my counterpart seems to be a fire sign, and the reason I say that is because around their heart I could see flashes of fire, and around my heart it reminded me of that movie Elemental. I could see more of the water, meaning like more of the tide of the moon in circulation, whereas the other person had the flame of the lion kind of mentality. So I could see that there was that symbolism to this person, and maybe they just have a fiery personality, I don't know, but whoever it is seems to be outgoing. But remember, they're a magician. They're almost like a shapeshifter, in my opinion, spiritually speaking. But the alignment is coming from the fact that we are both in a very secure place within ourselves, where instead of seeking each other out necessarily, it seems like we were blindsided, which I find very cute. Sometimes the universe can be very, very surprising. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where sometimes you think the universe is heading in one direction with you, and suddenly it decides that it's going to go, nope, wrong person, we're going to go this way. So this is the course-corrected people that maybe have had false starts with other people that maybe were meant to be a twin flame, but it fell apart or whatever. You guys are a specific group that I'm speaking to that I seem to be aligning with. And it has to do with the pursuit of the best friend quality in your counterpart. The ride or die person. It's such a specific connotation and note frequency that it landed on my desk in a very pure way because I could identify it within myself. But with my counterpart, one of the things that I understood from just the brief interaction that I was having in the dream between our two inner children talking to each other was how excited they were to finally have a lifelong person to engage in conversations they've only ever had with themselves, freely. The idea that you will be able to literally say to someone, hey, what do you think about unicorns? The other person go, well, I've never met one, but I'm pretty sure once we do meet them, we'll understand if it's true or not. And so there's an explorative kind of no judgment, it's a judgment-free kind of partnership where two people are willing to engage the other person's creative skill set and believe in them no matter what. And this is a super important quality, especially for those of you who understand the divine union. You are non-restrictive of the other person. You may sometimes caution the other person that your perspective is a little different from them and that there might be some concern of some backlash, but those are all basic things that are constructive. You won't be destructive to each other. There's no toxicity to the relationship. One's not going to be jealous of the other. One's not going to try to hold the other person down. In fact, they'll understand that they'll both succeed by working together and always being in tandem. And there's something almost like the left brain, right brain hemispheres coming into union in physical form, and that you all somehow embody those dynamics. So it could be, let's say, a super free-spirited spiritualist female out there, a divine feminine, who comes into union with a very scientifically driven analytical mind that is very pragmatic. And the synergy that comes from their the opposition of each other, but somehow working perfectly in alignment, where he sees the value of her way of life and gains great momentum in his own journey by just being close to her. And she gaining a great deal of grounding energy by being in proximity to him, and the natural evolution and synergetic vibe that comes from their interactions with each other. It won't be forced. There's nothing forced about it. It's engaging a new experience in a way that has a physical form, meaning another human being that mirrors what you are in pursuit of or what you're learning. And one of the things that I found interesting about that type of revelation was that it reminded me of that moment where you sometimes partner with people that are on the quest for higher knowledge, but that you understand that you guys are different enough that it's not going to always be smooth sailing, but that from the get-go you know it's worth the exploration, right? There's something simpatico about these individuals, whatever the male-female or male-male, female-female dynamics are. There's something beautifully crafted about your soul signature that responds and gels well with the other person in a way that leaves other people kind of in awe around you. because you will have, if you don't already, if you haven't already come into union, when you two come together, when the masculine decides to make his move towards the feminine, or when the feminine inadvertently does something that makes the divine masculine know that this is go time, whenever that happens, there's something very sincere about the apprehension between the two. It's not that you're scared of a negative outcome, from what I'm told. It has more to do with your realizing that this is the person. And sometimes when you think of a dream and you put it out into the universe, when you wish on a star, you don't always realize that sometimes the person that you're wishing for is wishing for you at exactly the right moment that you are. Or you suddenly start to find, when you do come together, that you guys have such similar pathways that you probably have even been in the same cities or the same environments. And had you chosen a different path, you would have run into each other. But through divine orchestration, you will find that, and the truth is that you were purposely kept apart, having parallel lives, but kept apart till the moment where you were ready to receive each other. Because it's that be careful what you wish for thing, right? When you dream for the Holy Grail, which is true love incarnate, you don't often realize that it's possible because so many other people settle, right? Or they think they have one thing and then it turns out to be not what they wanted, and it kind of falls apart. And that's not castigation or judgment on another person. But for you all, you've had a different experience. A lot of you have been rather lonely. It's been a very isolatory process, and you picking up your own pieces in order to make yourself whole, in order to then attract the other person who is whole on their own. And the two of you come together, and suddenly there's an infinity circle that, when bridged into divine union, becomes a yin to your yang. And the wheel turns for both of you. So there's something very sacred about your vibration and how it dances with the other person. Meaning, as you two come together, from what I'm understanding, there's no greater energy source than pure joy, right? Even fear, like people talk about how some energies feed off the fear of other human beings. It's a dark soul type of energy that feeds off of humanity's suffering. There is no greater outlet than sun, than pure joy and elation, and it creates a system in which the environment that they exist or coexist with each other turns joyous and infectious to other people, and can prove quite helpful to society, especially in times of crisis or transition. These people do things while interacting with each other that may be goofy to other people, or that may be hysterical in the way that they talk to each other. And that there will be mysticism or magic to their dynamic that kind of makes other people go, like, very intensely look at them and like, what is their secret? And the secret is they were made to come together, but they had to come together at exactly the right time. And it appears from the dream that you guys are now in actual alignment with each other. Meaning that one, if not both of you, have come across the other, and whether it has been made clear to the other person yet, they are very interested and a little bit obsessed with the idea of what life might be like with you, because they're registering subconsciously that more than likely you are the one. But again, it's that hesitation before you get your big dream job, right? Well, what if I can't pull it off? What if I fuck this up? What if I do this? What if I do that? And suddenly the other person may be feeling as though they're being rejected, but in truth, the other person is just hesitating because they know this is it. This is it. There's no turning back. I know this is my person. I can't fuck this up. And so there's a greater level of intensity in the dynamic between you than is common for most couplings, right? Because your soul already knows the outcome. Your soul is aware of how this is going to go, and if it's going to end or what's going to happen. But it is willing to go along the journey because it has healed past wounds enough to know that just because things haven't worked out in the past doesn't mean that this one will not be different. Because it registers the best friend in the other person, the optimum possible dynamic between two people. So if you are understanding what I'm saying to you, what I would say is that one of the best indicators that you are in right alignment is there a playful demeanor to your interactions? because I could not help but fully acknowledge the fact that the other person made me wake up fully talking to myself. I was fully engaged in a conversation and I woke up talking because I was so excited to have a play partner. I was so grateful and elated to have my divine union partner finally with me, where I knew I could say anything, and kind of all of the conversations that I've always had in my own head and curiosities that someone now actually is equally interested in investigating or to look at, and kind of that interplay that comes with such a beautiful union. And I realized that it meant so many of us are getting that perfect. And I wouldn't say perfect because there's no such thing as perfection, but the almost idealized expression of a reward season that is uncommon to other people, right? Remember, different people have different ideas of what is rewarding, right? I'm not throwing any shade here, but some people really want a huge mansion and $20 billion, and then, hopefully if they're like me, they would do something charitable with that money and give back to society and build charities and schools and stuff like that that are for different intelligences and stuff like that. But not everybody has that goal or aspiration. You guys will find a synergy to your goals, meaning there will be a natural inclination, like let's say the two beings come together that are highly spiritually evolved, however that breaks down, who both suddenly want to change course in their journey, in their careers, and build a school. They might come together at this point in the storyline because you're ready to start working on it. And in your interplay, it will reignite and reinforce you to such a degree that the momentum can't be stopped. It just goes. Both of you reinforcing the other, making sure that no one talks shit, no blah, 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 blah. It's super defensive, super protective of each other, without overstepping any boundaries, healthy, protocol and stuff like that. But that you ignite passion within the other person, and it's sustainable. It's not something that fades away. If anything, you tend to energize each other. And however that breaks down to you, whatever your greater mission is, life is connected to another, because one of you seems to be the door opener and the other one seems to be the key. And so as you two come together, you will do things that are brand new, maybe to society as a whole, or you will just approach things in a duality where the yin and the yang are actually working together as one. Made up of two equal parts. And so that's an incredibly interesting new dynamic to the human condition, because we've been so individuated for so long that we had to learn what it was to stand on your own 2 feet so that you wouldn't tank the other person if shit hit the fan. Instead, you would reinforce their foundation to ensure that not only did they survive, but they thrived, and so did your family and everybody associated with your community. This is a very highly evolved duo. It's almost like Batman and Robin in friendship, or Superman and, I don't know, Lois Lane, I guess it is. I don't know superheroes, guys. I'm not into that whole thing. But you know what I mean. Like, it's that dynamic where it brings the best out of the other person without any effort being put into it by either party. It is divine orchestration. It's basically you becoming the embodiment of the great architect and Miss Sophia in that dynamic of the romantic gesture of I couldn't help but realize that some of you are going to have some old world love. Like back in the day where the gentleman is so gentle natured to the divine feminine that not only does he cherish her and love her, but it's almost like she represents God to him. Right? He's more pragmatic and more grounded in the earthly plane, how it came across in the other, and one of the stronger signatures. And she's much more spiritual. And in their interaction with each other, and the love that they produce within the dynamic between the two represents God to him. And to her, it reinforces the promise from God that they would have that. And so there's something beautifully well crafted about the dynamic for those two. And then I saw two women, specifically I could tell two divine feminines, that one had overcome so much in their life that the divine masculine expression in that female-female dynamic somehow healed a part of the other person that even the great architect may not have been able to heal had they not come together. And so it was divine orchestration on his, there's a higher will there at play that is somehow healing the other person in a way where they have done all the work themselves, and it's like a reward that is not based on materialism, but based in the ultimate blessing, which is pure, true love, right? Whether you are in a platonic relationship with your best friend, if you find yourself free to think or say anything you even imagine to the other person, and they will be there to catch the ball, then this is to you. right? If you are in search of that, then you are a part of this particular trajectory of people coming together, right? There's nothing more rewarding than having a lifelong brother, a ride or die dude that is your best friend. The dynamic that I'm speaking to and the way that it was presented to me is it would be that for me as well as a love interest possibility. But that I had to register the fact that soulmates are also implied in this, meaning if you're in a pod, in a far out pod, you tend to bring like-minded individuals towards you. And the communities that you build, no matter how small they are super reinforced within the dynamic of what you all believe in and what your shared qualities are. So don't just sexualize everything, right? Don't just think that everybody is a sexual possibility. Some people are exceedingly platonic. There are some people that catch my eye that I know are not sexually, that we're never going to cross that path because one, they're probably not gay. And second of all, I'm a one-person pony, right? I'm only here to mate with one person, and that's just who I am. But that doesn't mean that I won't come across people either through him or that we meet because of our union and what we produce into the world that doesn't then attract other couples or other people to the table that we'll all be eating from and that we will all be working in different dynamics. But they're all divine orchestration. There's something infinitely divine about your union that is represented in the me holding the hand of the other person. And what's interesting though is that I could clearly see myself as an adult expression and then the memory of me as a child. So I could equate enough data to understand that I had actualized into the earthly plane exactly as I was meant to, and that the other person had also done it because they're mirroring me, but that was hesitating possibly because of either past interactions with each other, even if not intentional or even if only etherically. I don't know. There was an interesting part where the other person was hesitant based on not knowing if they had enough to offer in conversation, I guess, or I don't know. There was a slight insecurity there that I thought was really cute. Again, represented by the little rabbit that they were holding. It was like a security blanket, which was really cute. Of course, I later realized that it was more of the magician pulling a rabbit out of their hat, and maybe speaking a truth that takes me by surprise. Whatever it is, I'm not fishing, but you see what I'm saying. There's something really innocent and pure also about you two coming together, whoever you are, that's registering with this. There's something insanely sincere about the nervousness to the other person, and believe me, if you are the person that I'm connecting to, I have the same nervousness. It's just that my insecurities manifest differently than yours. So to those of you who are in that phase that are kind of from the other side, that are looking at a person that you're really interested in and you know is the one that's a divine union one, sure, they may not be open to it, but if your soul is saying that then take the chance. Because every moment that you hesitate is a moment you lose in time of being together. And when I say that this is going to be the most beautiful relationships this world has ever seen, I want you guys to really understand what that means. It is so rare to befriend your partner, but to be best friends with your partner and to have a soul recognition that allows the freedom to say and do whatever you want to say or do with that person is a freedom path that is unusual, even to the human condition, even to the spiritual world. It's very rare to have a playmate grounded into the physical expression of life at the same time as you are, where you can interact not just with internal monologue or dialogue, but actually have someone to bounce it off of and what that unlocks for you as a human being. So for those of you who are feeling the pull of this, you are a beacon to your counterpart. And from what I'm understanding from the dream, your energy and your signature is so strong that it's almost unmistakable for the other person. And you represent a magic quality in each other. There's an immediate soul recognition between the two that when you see each other may lead to what people call the deer in the headlight moment, where you're just like, oh my God, unicorns do exist. Or, oh my God, there he is. Or there she is. Oh my, really? There's a moment of like, oh shit. Like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? And it's like a slight panic that comes over the vibration. And I thought it was really, really cute. But notice that I find that cute. Your counterpart, if you're the opposing side of this, your counterpart will find that endearing and not be repelled by it. Because they will understand it, because they themselves are having that, they're just manifesting it in a different form. And so for them, it might be, whereas you get clammy and like all nervous about, oh my God, well, blah, blah, blah. They may have, like right before the date goes, an hour of them talking themselves in and out of stuff. So just know that you guys are perfectly coming into union, and understand that from what I see, you are going to unlock doors in each other, and it's such a rewarding way that you will never want to sleep. There's a quality of like not only romance and bromance and friendship and stuff, but there's a quality of genuine camaraderie, brotherhood, and sisterhood. And that is where I'm going to leave it. Have a good day, bye. Bye.